everybody. Who have we got? Hello, Mrs. Yates. Hi, Mum. Hi, Miss Paul. Hi, Miss Potter. Hi, Miss Watson. Hi, Lucia. Hi, Mrs. Hammond. I've just texted you, Mrs. Hammond, actually. And oh, lots of people saying hi to you, Al. Hi, Tom. Tom wants to get one of these for Pip, his chicken. Not sure how a chicken would feel about it, but worth a try. I move that a bit further back. And then we can both get in it, Al. As can my cup of tea. There we go. I'm contemplating chopping off this. I think it obstructs his view. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do that right now. Because he never plays with it. No, careful. I don't want to cut your whiskers. Oh, now he likes it. Is that better? She's covered in fur. It's gross, Al. Anyway, happy Thursday. Hope everybody's had a nice day. Lots of you, I think, tuned into Miss Watson's maths lesson earlier. So hopefully you all enjoyed that. I did, definitely. I didn't watch it live, but I loved it when I did tune in. Hi, Steph. Oh, Steph, you could get Jess to watch the screen and while Albie's here and see if they remember how much they hate each other. I don't think you'd even like to see a picture of Jess, would you, Al? Jess is watching. Do you remember Jess, Al? Remember how much you hated her? Jess is now Steph's cat, anyone that's wondering. Oh, Lauren's on and JB. Hi, Lauren and JB. And Tina. Fierce killer. Look at these claws. I'm going to spill my tea out. Hi, Mr. M and Oscar and Sarah. Hi, Delaney's. It's just that one he's after. Oh, you were nicer when you were asleep, Al. He's nice, really. He's actually not. He's a vicious killer. He was eyeing up some pigeons in the garden earlier from the patio doors. I think they were trying to mate on the fence, and they were flapping a lot. And he was like, he doesn't meow when there's birds in the garden. He sort of, I'll do an impression. He sort of goes like that if there's birds in the garden. He wasn't impressed. Oh, Jack's on with his rich teas. Good boy, Jack. Thank you for your email today, Jack. I haven't replied to it yet, but your posters look fab in your window. Caris is on. Rich tea's ready as well. Good. Hannah's on. Mrs. Moody's on. Mrs. Jones is on. Going to get up now because he's closed the door, and that's the end of that. Oh, Toby's watching. Hi, Toby. And Alana's on. Hi, Alana. Give it another minute. It's 4 past at the moment. Hi, Freddie. Just gonna check on Albie. Hello, Mr. M. Hi, boys. Boys, you're technically live on Facebook. Is this weird? I'm watching you, watching me, watching me, watching you. Look, boys, you're famous. That's weird. Oh, we've got a few people on. Alright, speak to you later. Bye. Modern technology, isn't it amazing? Oh, Tom's got the jungle in front of him in a picture. That's a good idea. Ronnie's on. Hi, Ronnie. Lovely. Okay, I think we'll make a start. So we got to that really exciting bit yesterday. So let's just recap. Oh yeah, so Chaya pushed Nawa over the waterfall to get them away from the horsemen who were chasing them, because they so nearly got caught, didn't they? So they had to jump into the 80-foot waterfall. Nawa was really scared, so Chaya just pushed her. They lost Neil, didn't they, in the run? Somewhere they lost Neil. And then suddenly they've got to the end and they're in the bit of a river at the bottom, and Chaya has seen Nawa, she thinks, floating somewhere a bit further down, and she suddenly had a panic that the reason that Nawa didn't want to jump off the ledge is because she's really frightened and she can't swim, because obviously she's from a desert. She's not necessarily going to be surrounded by places to go swimming, is she? So I'll read the last couple of lines. Nawa was scared of water and probably couldn't swim, and Chaya had just pushed her down an 80-foot waterfall. Oh, exciting. Hi, Mrs. Henderson. Chapter 25. Chaya thrashed towards Naua. She would save her if it was the last thing she did. The water surged and crashed around her. She fought to close the distance between them. She had always been a strong swimmer, but the river was rough and wild. Naua! She yelled again. Naua! But Naua didn't respond. Her body flopped ahead in the waves. Was she even conscious? Chaya felt a stab of fear. She kicked out furiously. Naua, I'm coming! The gap between them was wider than ever. It was useless. Neil was missing, probably still in the jungle area where they'd jumped, maybe captured by the king's men. And Naua was dying in the water. It was all her fault, again and again and again. It was all because of her. She kicked and thrashed and swam towards Naua. She was getting closer, so close now Chaya could almost reach out and touch her. Chaya launched herself at Naua, grabbing at her clothes as they hurtled along. Naua was conscious, but barely. Her eyes showed a flicker of recognition, but she was too exhausted to move. Chaya struggled to tug Naua ashore, but she wasn't helping. She slumped like a dead weight in Chaya's arms. Naua, we need to get to the shore. Please, work with me. She grunted as she fought against the current to drag Naua to the bank. Rocky ledges speckled the sandy banks of the river. Chaya tried to lift Naua onto one of them. She shoved Naua upwards towards a flattish rock. She had to get Naua out of the water and on land. Chaya felt her strength fading away. The sun burned at her head and spots swam in front of her eyes. She had to save Naua. If Naua fell back into the water, Chaya wouldn't have the strength to help her again. She gave one last heave and rolled Naua onto the ledge, where she moaned and lay still. Chaya tried to hoist herself after Naua, but her arms had seized up. The brightness of the day dimmed into black shadows, and the last thing she saw was the water closing over her face as she fainted backwards into the water. Oh my goodness. What an end to a chapter. Just take a moment, think about what you think is going to happen. So she's got Naua onto the bank, but she's used up all her strength and has just fallen backwards into the water. Amazing. Who else is on? Oh, Lucas. Hi, Lucas. I hope you did Miss Watson's maths lesson today. Oh, and Mrs. Griffiths is on. Hi, Mrs. Griffiths. Okay, chapter 26. Chaya was in a deep sleep. Everything was peaceful here. The sound of birdsong mingled with the swishing of leaves and gush of water. Then something thick and warm wrapped itself around Chaya's waist as she was lifted high into the air. Her body made contact with something hard and she was shaken awake. Chaya's clothes and hair were soaked and clinging to her. Her cheek was pressed against a flat rock. She opened her mouth and vomited out water, over and over again until she felt light and worn out. She opened her eyes. The river lay in front of her, swirling and white. Above her, the blue sky arced over the horizon. A large butterfly with black and white markings on translucent wings fluttered past, its shadow crossing her face as it went. Was this real? Or had she drowned? If she had, she deserved it. Neil was gone, and thanks to her, Naua was alone too. All of them lost in Serendib's jungle. A chilly wind swept her wet body, and she shivered. Her arms stung from the cuts all over them. Chaya lifted her head and looked down at herself. Her tattered clothes clung to her, and an enormous shadow fell across her legs. That shadow? There was something familiar about it. Chaya lifted herself up on her elbows, wincing as she did. She turned to look behind her. There, his huge tusks looming over her, stood Ananda. Ananda's rescued her! I thought he'd come back into it because considering the book has him on the front and elephant in the title, I thought when they had to leave him to run away last time, I thought that wasn't a big part for him to have played. That was a short chapter. Chapter 27. Ananda, she whispered. It was you who pulled me out of the river. So the king's men hadn't found him after all. He must have been roaming the jungle all that time looking for them. And he'd saved her. This time he'd saved her life. She smiled gratefully at him, closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep again. When she came to, Ananda was still standing over her. She flexed her fingers and felt some of the strength come back to her limbs. Chaya sat up shakily and pulled herself to her feet. It was evening. The sky was darkening and the jungle was full of the shrieks of crickets. "We need to find them, Ananda," she said. She looked along the banks of the river, but no flash of red dress caught her eye. "Now we must be somewhere, and we need to find Neil." She sank down onto her knees and buried her face in her lap. Who was she fooling? The jungle rose up around her, a vast swathe of darkness and light, and Neil and Noah were two pinpricks lost somewhere in it. Something wrapped itself like a blanket around her middle, and once again she found herself lifted up in Ananda's trunk and onto his broad back. She felt the warmth of him like an embrace and the lull of his gait as he thumped his way along the riverbank. She rubbed the back of her hand over her eyes. "Noah," she called out. Ananda padded on, stepping over weeds and through flat ground. "Noah, can you hear me?" She urged Ananda on. "She can't be too far off. Noah! Neil! Do you hear me?" Her shouts echoed through the jungle. A civet, I think. A civet stopped in its tracks and then scuttled away, its golden body quivering in the waning light. Where were they? And where were the king's men? Would they hear her? "Noah!" Ananda lifted up his head and trumpeted. The sound boomed through the forest and was met by a whispering of trees as owls woke up and hooted, followed by another cry. Softer. Human. There was movement ahead. Chaya squinted into the gloom. Something was coming towards them. And there in the distance, framed by a giant split ironwood tree, was Noah. "I thought I'd never find you," said Noah, hobbling towards Chaya. Her eyes were swollen and her face streaked with dirt. "First Neelan, then you?" A fresh outpouring of tears coursed down her face. Chaya jumped off Ananda and hugged Noah. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "Know what?" Noah sniffed and rubbed her eyes. She looked worn through. "About the water, that I'm a coward who's afraid of everything." Noah laughed before her body was racked by a sob. "I shouldn't have pushed you." "Never mind, it saved us, didn't it? Otherwise we'd be with the king by now, being put to the sword for helping a criminal escape." "Still, I'm sorry. I know it's not enough." Noah shook her head. "Do you think they got Neelan?" "I hope not. He might have escaped. He was ahead of us. Neil can be quick when he has to be." "What do we do now?" "We look for Neil. But if we stay here, the king's men will find us. And if we go too far, we won't find Neil." Noah started to sob again. "Oh, Chaya, it's hopeless, isn't it?" "No, it isn't." There was no need to make things worse than it was. "We need to stay strong, Noah." Chaya couldn't navigate the jungle like Neil did. She had no idea where they were. "How big is this jungle?" asked Noah. Not very." She felt terrible for lying, but now wasn't the time to reveal that the jungle covered nearly half of Serendib. "We can do this. Come on, you ride Ananda, we'll find somewhere to settle for the night and then look for Neil in the morning, okay?" Noah nodded. "It's a good thing we found Ananda," she said. She smiled up at him, but didn't touch him. At least she was using his name now. I'm just going to go and shut my kitchen door because the washing machine is really noisy. Sorry about that. She smiled up at him, but didn't touch him. At least she was using his name now. Ananda kneeled and Noah climbed onto him. Chaya led them away from the river and into the trees. The jungle was much cooler now. The sun was setting and the gaps between the trees darkened into hollows. Chaya and Noah swapped places as they went on. "Do you wish," said Nawa from where she was walking along, munching on a piece of grass. That you could go back and undo everything. What kind of silly question is that? Well, think about it. You would be safe, Neil would be safe, your father would continue on as before, everything would be the same, but Vijay would lose his leg and never walk again. I'm tired. Do I have to answer these questions? I'm tired too, but it passes the time. I just wondered, that's all. You don't have to answer. Then Nawa added under her breath, especially since you never admit you're wrong. Chaya ignored her. The truth was she wasn't sure anymore. They swapped again as they looked for a place to settle for the night. After a while, Chaya led Ananda to a halt under a canopy of trees with a springy bed of ferns underneath. This looks comfortable enough. Nawa looked around sadly as she got off Ananda. We can't even have a fire without Neelam. We've got Ananda, said Chaya. No animal would come close with him protecting us. She hoped that was true. I have something to tell you, said Nawa. I think I'm dying. Chaya raised an eyebrow. You could be a bit more sympathetic. Nawa pulled back her sleeve and showed her arm. Look at all these pink spots. I have them all over me. Nawa, I hate to tell you the obvious, but we're in a jungle. Those are insect bites. Nawa pulled a face. That's horrible. How come you don't have them, or Neil? Of course I have them, but why would it bother me? That's the least of our worries right now. She looked round at the trees. Let's find something to eat. I wish I could climb trees like you, said Nawa, looking up into the branches of a thick tree. I'll show you soon, I promise. Just need to get something to eat now. I mean, there's that prickly fruit up there in the tree. She pointed up into the branches. There, look. Chaya looked up, following Nawa's finger. It's a jackfruit. That's the best fruit ever. That's one we were talking about I was talking about on yesterday's video. Some of you might have had that. It's got quite popular recently. The one that you quite often get it as barbecued jackfruit. Nawa smiled and sat cross-legged on the ferns as Chaya shimmied up the tree to pick the juiciest jackfruit she could find. They might as well enjoy the moment, because tomorrow they had the impossible task of finding Neil in this gigantic jungle. Ooh. That's the end of chapter 27. Sullivans are on. Hello, Sullivans. I loved your video. Absolutely brilliant. I hope lots of people also watch that. Reese and Thomas are on. Hi, boys. Okay, chapter 28. Nawa, Chaya whispered and shook her. Dawn had broken and shafts of light thrummed from between the trees. Nawa moaned and stretched. It's morning already? Shh! Chaya looked around. I think they're coming. We need to get going. Nawa grimaced and staggered to her feet. We'll both ride Ananda, come on. Chaya dragged her stiff body up behind Nawa and they swayed softly as Ananda moved off. From behind them came a faint hum, like a swarm of moths. Something about the sound, the puffs of dust drifting through, the tension in the air, told Chaya something big was coming towards them. But Ananda was doing a good job of running away from it all, as he hurtled through the trees at top speed. I think we've lost them, shouted Chaya, slowing Ananda down. I don't hear anything now. You know, once this is all over, we should give Ananda a huge treat. What's an elephant treat? I don't know. Chaya glanced behind them. Sugar cane, maybe? You know so much stuff, said Nawa as they rode under a banyan tree, its trailing leaves brushing against their legs. How did you learn these things? Chaya shrugged. It's just stuff. Everyone knows them. She noticed Nawa's frown. You're different. You're new here. You'll get to know things soon enough. Nawa was silent for a bit. I thought you were going to laugh at me, she said. That's what the old you would have done. Something whizzed past Chaya's ear and an arrow stabbed into a tree. Nawa screamed. Chaya tapped Ananda on his side and he sped up, thundering through the trees. Another arrow came whistling past, this time ripping through one of Nawa's sleeves. Oh no, they're here, they're here! Nawa screamed. Calm down, Nawa, said Chaya. She needed to think. Something wasn't as it should be. There was no sound of galloping. Were the king's men on foot now? Nawa screamed and pointed behind them. Look at that! What are those? They were squelching through a muddy patch where several man-sized water lizards were glistening blackly. Ananda just stepped over the scaly creatures and their whiplash tails. They're called water monitors, and they're horrible, said Chaya as they zipped away from the creatures. She turned back to look in front of her and screamed, Duck, Nawa! They both bobbed down just in time to avoid the thick horizontal branch whistling towards them. Better keep our eyes in front, called Chaya. Nawa nodded, her eyes fixed ahead. Ananda suddenly slowed down, even though Chaya tapped him and urged him on, but he eased right down to a plod. What's the matter with Ananda? She said to Nawa, but then she looked to where Nawa was silently pointing. Standing on the forest floor ahead of them was a man with a bow, his arrow trained straight at them. I could be really mean and leave it there until tomorrow. No, we'll have another one. I can't leave it there until tomorrow. I'll be reading it in secret otherwise. Let's have some coffee. Chapter 29. What do you want? Said Chaya as Ananda came to a halt in front of the man. Move on so we can pass. The man shook his head. No. Are you joking? Said Chaya. We have an elephant. Move unless you want to be flattened. And you stay there unless you want me to shoot the elephant. Something rustled through the trees and about 10 men surrounded the girls. They all carried bows and arrows like the first and were bare-chested and wore dirty sarongs tied up to their knees. Chaya stared at them. Bandits. We've been waiting for you, said the first man. He seemed like the leader and looked slightly less scruffy than the rest. We have something of yours. Something of theirs? Whatever did he mean? What do you think he might have? There was more rustling through the bushes and someone else emerged. Neil! Chaya slid off Ananda and threw her arms around the bedraggled Neil, followed by Nawa, who did the same. Neil, are you okay? The bandit holding Neil rolled his eyes and Neil blushed furiously. He gave the girls an awkward pat and untangled himself hastily. Yes, I'm fine. I'm so glad to see you. The men gathered round Ananda and one tried to rub his hide. Ananda swayed and shook his head. Hey, what are you doing? Yelled Chaya. He doesn't like that. We're taking him, said the bandit leader. Why do you think we were waiting for you? Gamage, said Neil to the leader. I don't know what that means. Look that one up. Said Neil to the leader. The elephant's getting agitated. Someone could get hurt. Oh, it's his name. It's the leader's name. Gamage. I see. I'll start that bit again. Gamage, said Neil to the leader. The elephant's getting agitated. Someone could get hurt. Lead him to our place then, boy, said Gamage, backing away from a sidestepping Ananda. We can chain him up until he's used to us. Why would you do that? Said Chaya. Get away now before he mows you down. Gamage turned to them. Listen, children, we'd rather kill this beast right now and take his tusks if we had our way, but we have orders to take him unhurt. So help us and nothing need happen to him. Orders? Said Chaya. From whom? Stop asking questions. Gamage looked irritated as the other men stepped back from Ananda, whose massive body kept moving from side to side. Something crunched under the elephant's foot, sending the men retreating even further. If the animal keeps doing this, then we'll have no choice but to shoot. Chaya darted up to Ananda and shooed the men away. Slowly he calmed down as he saw the three of them, even rubbing his trunk on Neil's head. Neil rubbed him on the back. I missed you too, Ananda. Heartwarming as this reunion is, said Gamage, we need to be taking the elephant now. So if you'll lead him our way, it's in your and the animal's best interest. Try anything and we'll shoot. Chaya glanced at Neil and he nodded slightly. They didn't want Ananda to be hurt. "We'll bring him," said Neil. The men led the way, all the while looking suspiciously at the children. They followed Gamaj and his men to a kind of jungle hideout. Little wooden huts squatted low among smaller trees in a clearing, and on a central platform a few other men sat smoking and chatting. Neil dropped his voice to a whisper. "The news from Narissa isn't good. I've been hearing a few things while I've been here. Apparently the king is terrorising the villagers, asking them to give us up. They haven't stopped since we left. The people are frightened and angry. They hate us too because of what we've brought on them. They don't ever want us to return." Chaya staggered backwards and leaned against Ananda. "Do you know if our families are safe?" said Nawa. She'd stuffed the back of her fingers in her mouth. "I'm not sure, but nobody in the village..." Neil looked away and swallowed. "Nobody is dead." A yet hovered unsaid in the air. "Father would try to reason with the king," said Chaya. "He'd do his best for the village." I don't think he can do much at the moment," said Neil. "Why not? He'd do anything for the villagers." Neil looked absolutely miserable. "He's been arrested, Chaya." "Oh no." I don't know how they're going to get out of this. Oh, we've got a really short chapter. We'll have time for one more. I'll just see who else is on. Oh, Claire's on. That maybe means Vis and Evie are on. Hi. Miss Sherry's on. Hi, Miss Sherry. And Chelsea's watching. Hi, Chelsea. I've said hi to everyone's message that's come up. So if you've said hi, there were a few people again yesterday who said hi and it didn't come up. So if you said hi and I haven't said hi back, just comment again and hopefully it might come up. Okay, one more. Chapter 30. Chaya was speechless. The village was in turmoil and father in jail. Things couldn't get any worse than this. Nawa hurriedly changed the topic as if that would make Chaya forget. "Why did the bandits take you, Neelan?" "They wanted me to lead them to you and Ananda." "They must want him for his tusks," said Nawa. "No, they were telling the truth. They do want him alive and unhurt." "It's probably to sell him on." She exchanged worried glances with Neil. Chaya stared ahead towards the platform. Her village was in danger and she needed some time to think. Gamaj and the men were sitting on their haunches, talking to the others. "They want him for Senna, the king's half-brother," said Neil. "What?" Chaya was stunned. She turned her full attention to Neil. "So it's true? The banished prince really is back for the throne?" "Yes, and these men are on his side. Ananda is the king's elephant, the state elephant. They want him alive for Senna." "So that someday Senna can ride into victory on the king's elephant?" Neil nodded. "I can't believe it," said Nawa. "He's actually back. This must be the king's worst nightmare come true." "It wouldn't be for months yet that they try to do anything," said Neil. "Senna's people are collecting supporters bit by bit in different parts of the island." "What about round your village?" said Nawa. "Not yet. They are slowly working their way inwards towards the king's city." "Wait a minute." A plan was beginning to take shape in Chaya's head. "Does this mean these men are enemies of the king?" "Yes," said Neil. "He must hate them more than he hates us." "And that's saying something," said Nawa. The plan was growing and strengthening and seeming more and more plausible all the time. What do you think her plan is? What do you think Chaya's thinking? Am I the only one seeing a way out of all this and saving our people at the same time? Nawa looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" said Neil. "Oh, Neil, don't you see? Any enemy of the king is a best friend to us." And that's the end of chapter 30, and that's where we're going to leave it today. I feel like we made quite a bit of progress in that bit there. Quite a lot's happened. And there's not much left at all. Look, that's all we've got left. More than just one session though, I think. Not sure how long that will take us. But we will do same time tomorrow for the next bit. remember, tonight is Thursday, so we did the clapping for our carers last Thursday, and tonight it's singing, I think. So 8 o'clock on your doorsteps, everyone, because it was so lovely last week and loads of people joined in. So don't forget that. Miss Watson's Maths again tomorrow at 10 o'clock for year 3s, so that should be nice. And my class, I've put another thing on the website about emailing me, so I can email you back, so we can hopefully have a whole class video call. I've had some, but I think there's lots of people that would want to do that maybe haven't got that message. So if you've got the message and not email me, then email me. If you've got the message but you think there's other people, like your friends, who haven't, then can you tell them so that they can email me as well? And then we'll arrange a time and stuff. Emily was on again. Hi Emily, I've just seen your message. And Darcy's on again. Doesn't want the book to end. No, it's going to be sad when it ends, but like I said, we'll choose another one to do after that, so we'll still have something. Hope you have a nice evening, everybody, and stay safe, and I will see you tomorrow at 5.